Let's get to it, everybody. I'm gonna get my comment posted here, and then we will get into it. For some reason, I keep getting these poor connection pauses when we're doing the lives, like the last 4 days. I don't know why. But anyway, as y'all coming in, shout yourselves out in the comments section. We will get started in a moment. Hope everybody's having a great. Today is Wednesday, so hope everybody's having a great Wednesday, great end of your month. I'm gonna point out some housekeeping things I need to make sure everybody understands, regardless of where you're coming from, and then we're gonna get into this topic here today. So first of all, you can shout yourself out in the comment section. I'll shout you out there if you tell me your name and location. And also, since we're getting to the end of the month of April, make sure that you are number one, checking your goals for this month that is coming to a close, and seeing how you did on your goals for this month. Did you hit your goals? What goals do you need to carry over to next month? What goals you need to make some adjustments to? Maybe there's some actions and some mindsets, some strategies you need to make adjustments to, so you can hit those goals next month if you didn't hit them this month. And since we got a new month coming up, make sure you are setting your goals for the month of May as well. For those of you who don't know, we set goals here in the Work on Your Game world. We set goals for everything. So you set goals for the year, but not just for the year. You don't just write them down at the beginning of the year and then never look at them again. You set goals for every month. You break your yearly goals down into the month, then the week, and then the day. So if you have not been a goal-setting individual up to this point in your life, you can start right now, as I just told you. And if you don't have this book right here, this book will show you how to set goals, and I'll actually give you space in the book to write the goals. So this is not 500 pages of reading you got to do. There's space in here for you to actually write your goals. That is called the Mental Workbook. You can get that as part of the Mental Game Super Duper Bundle when you go get your copy of my book, The Third Day, or The Mirror of Motivation. So we got Roni, Will Havana. What's going on? Appreciate you. So for those who don't know me, my name's Dre Baldwin. Former 9-year pro athlete, author of 31 books, creator of this whole brand philosophy framework that's called Work on Your Game. It's all about taking the mental tools and the traits and attributes and strategies and skills that you need to succeed as a professional athlete, and applying those tools to everyday work and everyday life. So for those who are not familiar with me, that's what this whole brand and business is about. That's what I'm about. And what we're going to talk about here today is your unacceptable list. This is really about the goals and parameters that you're setting for yourself, not necessarily from the top down, but sometimes from the bottom up. Sometimes it's easier for people to do it that way. And we're going to talk about what exactly this means. I got 4 points here that I'm going to give you that will help you out a lot. And then if there are any questions at the end, I will take them. All of this is part of a setup. The reason why I've been doing these lives, part of a setup for my Work on Your Game live event, which will be taking place starting 1 week from tomorrow, next Thursday, May 5th and 6th. So my Work on Your Game live event is specifically for the intellectual property / experts / thought leaders who are in entrepreneurship. You want to make money from selling your knowledge and taking the things that you know and the things that you understand and teaching them to other people and making money off it. If that sounds like you, get a ticket to Work on Your Game Live. The link is in my bio on Instagram, and it's also the pinned comment that you see right here on this live. WorkOnYourGame.live is the website. That's where you get your ticket. That's WorkOnYourGame.live is where you get your ticket to Work on Your Game Live. Now, this topic, the unacceptable list, we all understand the concept of goal setting. Even if you don't participate in goal setting, everybody understands goal setting. And if you don't, read my book, The Mental Workbook, which I just showed you, to understand goal setting, why it matters, and why you need to be doing it consistently. But today is about basically the inverse of setting goals, because a goal is you making a plan for something that you want. Like, everyone understands that. Like, your goals are, I want to get to this spot in my career. I want to score this many points for my sports team. I want to make this much money in my business. I want to achieve these outcomes from my family. I want to get this kind of house. I want to drive this kind of car. We all understand the concept of setting goals. That's the things that we want. The unacceptable list is about making sure that we're clear, not only on the things that we do want, unacceptable list is about getting clear on the things that we don't want. And why does this matter? The reason why this matters is because sometimes it's easier to put things in perspective going from this direction than from the goals direction. And I'll explain how and why that is in 1 second. And also how to handle anything that you come across in your life, or anything that, if you think about it, anything that you've already come across in your life that you know should probably go on that unacceptable list, and you want to make sure that it's on there. We're going to go over that as well here. So let's get right to it. Point number 1 is this. Goal setting is sometimes hard for people because it can be a challenge for any of us to imagine having something that we never had before. It can be hard to imagine getting something, or being something, or doing something, or going somewhere, or fill in the blank. But anything that you have never experienced before, it's hard to set that goal of experiencing that thing. Sometimes it's just hard for human beings to envision. Some people are really good at envisioning stuff. They're really good at visualizing stuff that has never actually occurred in their lives. I personally am a person who's always been a visualizer, a strong visualizer ever since I was really young. But not everybody has that skill. Some people can only really visualize something that they can see and they can feel and they can touch, that has been in front of them before in their lives. So for anyone who has that challenge to any degree, the unacceptable list is about you looking at things that have occurred in your life that you absolutely know that you do not want. That you know you don't want these things around. You don't want these things to ever happen. So some things that you may want as goals might be so far out of reach from where you're at that it can be hard for you to even fathom. It can be hard for you to even try to visualize a certain thing because you've never had it in your life before. So the mental workbook, as I said, can help you with that, with the goal setting. But here's another way that you can help yourself when it comes to setting goals, or just getting clear on what you want in life, is what are the things that you don't want? Is anyone who has a challenge of not knowing what you want, or not being able to articulate what you want? It probably won't be hard for you to say what you do not want. All right, what are some things, think about it, that you've experienced in your life that you absolutely know you do not want to ever happen again? What are those things? Maybe it's a relationship that you were in before. It could be an intimate relationship. It could be a friendship. It could be a business partnership that it just went wrong because there were certain things that maybe you didn't notice, or certain things that emerged sometime down the road. And once you realize it, you're like, all right, this absolutely can never happen again. Write those things down. What is something that has happened to you in your life that maybe because of your own ignorance, your own naivete, maybe just something that you didn't know, i.e. your ignorance, some bad ended up happening that you didn't want to have to deal with, but you had to deal with because, again, you didn't know what you didn't know. What are those things? Write those down. Those go on the unacceptable list. What are some things that maybe because you just didn't know any better, or you tried to give someone the benefit of the doubt, or something, the benefit of the doubt, ended up being a really bad situation going against your better judgment, and then you say, you know what, I knew I shouldn't have let this happen from the beginning, but I let it happen, and then it got into a worse situation. What are those things? Write those down. All of those go on your unacceptable list. So anyone who has a challenge with setting goals for the things that you want, all right, try to get your brain working. You basically warm yourself up by thinking about what are the things that you do not want, things that you can't stand. What are some things that you can't stand right now about your life? What are some things going on in your life right now that you absolutely do not like the fact that there's a poor connection again? All right, we're back on. And everybody has these things in their lives. Every single person on the planet has some things in their life that they want to make better, that they want to improve, that they want to work on. We all have these things. So what are some of those things for you? Those things can go on your unacceptable list, at least the things that are really unacceptable for you, the things that you know, like, this has to be an emergency for me to get rid of these things. These are things that go on your unacceptable list. To give you an example, once I did a speaking gig, and I remember I gave these people, they have reached out to me and they asked me to come give a keynote speech. And I gave them a discount on the fee because they didn't have the full fee. And then they couldn't pay me all the money up front. They had to pay me the money on the back end. And then I went and did the speech, and I killed it on the speech. And then they had to pay me on the back end, but then they were taking long to give me the money. And then this person had to go to this person, and they had to go to that person. There's all these different people that had to connect with each other in order for me to get paid, and they weren't even paying me my full fee. And I was really annoyed. And I remember thinking to myself, I couldn't even really be, I was annoyed with them, but I couldn't really be that annoyed with them because I had accepted the situation and allowed it to become what it became. Because I accepted, they told me from the beginning, look, we can't pay you a full fee and we got to pay you on the back end. I accepted that. I could have just said no. So the only person I could really be annoyed with was myself. So I put all of that, all those things that occurred, I put those on my own unacceptable list. This is probably like 4 or 5 years ago this happened. And I put this on my own unacceptable list and changed my parameters for what I would accept and what I wouldn't accept when it came to the way that I operated and the way that I did business. Most notably getting paid up front for things. And this is the kind of thing that will go on your unacceptable list. And again, it doesn't have to be business, doesn't have to involve money. It can be anything in your life that you're like, this situation absolutely can and will never happen again. What is that going to be for you? And again, oftentimes, and this is an important thing for y'all to understand about the unacceptable list. This is not about what other people did to you. Very important point. What goes in your unacceptable list is not about what somebody else did. It's not about your business partner was shiesty and they did that, or you were in a relationship with some girl or some guy and they were a toxic person, or you know had a job and the boss was a jerk and you end up getting fired, or you end up having to quit or filing a lawsuit, whatever it is. See, all of those things, when you word it that way, you're putting all the onus and all the blame on the other person. That's not what the unacceptable list is about. Because the unacceptable list, notice the title of my live here. You see the first word in that title? It says your unacceptable list. This is not about other people's lists, because that guy or that girl who you felt like you were in a toxic relationship with, look, maybe they think you were the one that was toxic. All right, if you were in a bad business deal and you thought your business partner was kind of shiesty and slimy, maybe they thought you were the shiesty, slimy one who just didn't understand business. If you had to quit a job because the boss was a jerk, maybe the boss thought you just didn't want to work hard and you didn't like being told what to do. So the unacceptable list is about what you did and what you allowed, or what you did not do or did not allow or did not put in place that allowed that situation to occur. So the unacceptable list is all about what you can control, not about other people. So if you were in a bad partnership with a person who ended up being a bad person, what goes on the unacceptable list is what you would do differently so that you don't get into that kind of relationship again. Not what they need to do or not what was wrong with them. Because then again, you're putting all the responsibility on another person, and the challenge with that is you can't control other people. So number 2, we're talking about the unacceptable list here for people who came in the middle. And if you got a question or comment on anything that I say, just post it in the comment section. I will address them all at the end. I got 4 points here. Number 2, when you decide that something is unacceptable for you, whatever it is, and nobody can judge you on, there's nobody else's call what's unacceptable for you. You got to decide what goes on this list. Do not rationalize away anything that you deem unacceptable. And here's the thing that you need to understand. The more successful the person, the more things they deem unacceptable. Let me say it again. The more successful the person, the more things that they deem unacceptable. The more things they put on an unacceptable list. See, people who are, relatively speaking, more or less successful, the less successful person, their unacceptable list is like this big. They got like 3 things on it, like this. The more successful person, relative to that person, their unacceptable list is like this. It's like 50 things on it. It's like 50 things that they will not accept, that they will not tolerate, that they will not allow. In other words, the more successful you are going to be, the more things you will not accept, you will not tolerate, you will not allow, because you have strong parameters and you know exactly who you are, what you're about, what's okay, what's not okay. So do not rationalize away anything that is unacceptable. So what many people do, and some of you are probably guilty of this, you don't have to tell me, but you can own it yourself. Many people are guilty of rationalizing away things that they want to call unacceptable, but then they come up with a reason, or they craft a story in their minds to make it okay. All right, I don't like the fact that I'm 20 pounds overweight, but you know what? It's okay because I'm still making money in my business. It's okay because my kids still love me. It's okay because my man or my woman, whoever I'm with in my relationship, they're still with me and they still think I'm attractive. It's okay because I can still move around pretty well, and the doctor said, I'm still in pretty good health despite the fact that I'm 20 pounds overweight. What happens with many people is that they come up with these rationalizations. And the rationalization is simply just a story that you make up in your own mind to make something that's not okay seem okay. That's what a rationalization is. Many people just rationalize away small things in their lives, and the bigger they get, just the bigger the rationalization becomes, until that situation gets so big that they can't rationalize it away anymore. And the problem with that is you've conditioned yourself so much to make yourself okay with it that by the time it becomes so big that it's not okay, you have built up this wall in your mind to which you're not even willing to do anything about it because you've made it okay for so long. So you got to put yourself in a frame of mind. I heard Tony Robbins say this: not only must I change something, but I must change it, and I must change it now. So that's three things. It must change, I am responsible for changing it, and I got to change it right now. So it's number one is not okay. Number two, I'm 100% responsible. And number three, it's urgency. I must do something about it right now. Most people lack either one of these three, two of these three, or all three of these three. The three things is, first of all, making something change in your life. Many people, again, rationalize their way through life. They just come up with story after story as to why it's okay that they're in the situation that they're in, even though they don't even want to be in the situation, but they come up with a story for it. So that's the number one thing most unsuccessful people do, is come up with stories to make themselves okay with something that is probably not good. Secondly, many people basically drive themselves into a lack of success in life is because they don't take full responsibility for their situations. The phrase that you should drill into your mind is that it is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. All right, that's the saying. You should write that down, put it on your wall. It is not my fault, but it is my responsibility. If you touch it, it's your responsibility. It's not your fault that if you have a kid and your kid spills all their food on the floor and they're 2 years old, yeah, it's not your fault they spilled the food on the floor, but guess who got to clean it up? You. So it's not your fault, it's your responsibility. If you own a business and you got 3 employees and one of your employees makes a mistake that only you can fix, yeah, it's not your fault that the employee made the mistake because your employee should have known better. But if you're the one who can fix it, then it's your responsibility. Why? Because it's your business. And if you don't fix it, then your business is going to be in trouble. So just because something's not your fault does not mean it's not your responsibility. If it's affecting your life in a way that is not putting you in a better space, then it becomes your responsibility. You take ownership. Understand that ownership, unless your parents handed you they left you a business in their will. Other than that, unless you inherited a business, you can't be given ownership of anything. You must take ownership. Ownership is taken. The lead is taken. Initiative is taken. None of these things are handed to you. You must take them. So just because something's not your fault does not mean it's not your responsibility. Number 3 thing that causes people to be unsuccessful in life is that they do not move with a sense of urgency. Everything is, well, I could do it later. I don't have to do it now. I could do it later. I could get on. I can go read that book next week. I don't have to read it now. I can handle that situation in 6 months. I won't do it now. As soon as I get done with all these things I'm dealing with now, then I'll finally get to that thing. I'll get to that thing when the weather gets better. I'll get to that thing when the kids get out of school. I'll get to that thing when I get over this cold that I got right now. I'll get to that thing after I get my car washed. I get to that thing when I got to fix this flat tire on my truck. And once I fix that, then I'll handle it. I get to that thing I'm about to move in 3 weeks. After I move, I'll take care of that. What we do is we come up with these stories, these rationalizations as to why we can put things off. And people who become successful in life move with a sense of urgency, self-directed urgency. See, your urgency doesn't need to come from somebody else making you be urgent. You choose to be urgent. So these 3 things: must change, I must change it, must change it now. If you could just adapt those 3 things, it would change a whole lot in a lot of people's lives. I heard this guy named Dan Kennedy say the following. I'm going to read this quote. He said, "I find few people have extreme clarity. Few people enforce rigid rules. People shrug it off, excuse it, hope it will improve, give it one more chance 50 times. They settle, they compromise, they draw a line in the sand and back up and draw another and another. I do find that exceptionally successful, powerful, and rich people behave differently. They live by absolutes. If you do not find something harmful to your business's maximum success or accomplishments of your goals utterly, absolutely unacceptable, you won't muster enough urgency and force of will to get it fixed. When it is difficult and other people and circumstances conspire to slow you down or dissuade you, you'll be slowed and dissuaded. You have to be enraged, not just annoyed, terrified, not just worried, demanding, not just wishful." Close quote. Again, that's from Dan Kennedy. All of you, those 3 things that I just told you, again, if you could just adopt those things, it would change a whole lot in your life. You would start doing the things that you've been thinking about doing for the last year, and you'll finally actually do them, and you would actually start getting the kind of results that you want in your life. But these are all These all have to come from self. Like, somebody can give you all the information, but you still have to apply the information. So that's number 2. Number 3, we're talking the unacceptable list here. So anybody, again, if you got a question or comment, just post it in the comments. I'll address all the questions at the end of this, at the end of my points. Point number 3 is people will do more to eliminate pain than they will do to achieve pleasure. This is why when somebody's trying to sell you something, often they'll talk about the pain of the situation and how you can relieve the pain rather than the pleasure and all the good stuff that you're going to get. And if you're trying to sell something, you should probably talk about the pain, not just the pleasure. Good salespeople or good copywriters always talk about the pain at some point. It might not always be about the pain, but they'll figure out a way to mention the pain because the pain is what moves people to action. People will do more. People will work harder to avoid losing $100 than they will to gain $100. Why is this? As human beings, this is just the way that we're wired. So I wouldn't sign up for the class and trying to figure it out. Just know that it's true. So knowing that pain gets more pleasure, pain gets more attention rather than pleasure does. So the unacceptable list is a great tool to move you to action and get you off the couch so you can start creating the life, the business, the relationships, the body, the mindset, etc. that you want, because you want to get rid of that pain. And oftentimes in life, people could want all the good stuff. Usually when I talk to people, I say, well, what are you working on right now? People tell me about their goals, things they're trying to achieve. I want to achieve this, all these things they have laid out. But until someone feels a sharp enough pain, often they do nothing. They'll talk about it. They'll write it down. They'll aspire and dream about it and think about it and all of those things. But until somebody feels enough pain, they usually do absolutely nothing to achieve their own goals. Why is this? Well, I just told you why. Because people will do more to avoid pain than they will to achieve pleasure. So what pain are you feeling right now that is strong enough that's going to move you out of your state of inertia, your state of stagnation, and into actually doing something? Many of you, I'm going to be honest, and this is not just people watching right now on live, but if you're watching this on YouTube, many people don't feel enough pain in any area to do anything. And this is how, again, this is why people get to around age 21 and they live basically the same life for the next 60 years and then they die. Why? Because they never feel enough pain in any area to actually take action and make a change. And it's not actually that they don't feel enough pain, is that when they start to feel pain, this is what people do when they start feeling pain in a situation in life. There's two different responses when you feel pain in life. One response is, damn, I'm feeling pain. I need to make a change immediately. I must make a change. I must do it. I must do it now. Like I just told you, some people do that. That's a small percentage of people, they do that. The other group of people, this is what most people do. The second response is they come up with a story and rationalization that makes the pain not so painful anymore. They come up with a story that makes it okay. Again, this is like a person they know that they're 20 pounds overweight and they need to lose that 20 pounds. They've been talking about it for years. And then when they look at themselves in the mirror and they get on the scale and they see that they're still 20 pounds overweight, they could either feel painful and say, all right, I'm absolutely going to do something. I'm going to hire a trainer. I'm going to throw out all the candy bars and potato chips out of my pantry, and I'm going to go join the gym. And I'm going to go take a 2-mile walk every day. They could do that. But instead, this is what people do. They come up with a story that says, well, I don't need to lose that 20 pounds. I don't need to do it right now, do I? I mean, I could do it in the summertime. It's too cold outside. I don't need to hire a trainer. They cost too much. I can just get a trainer off YouTube. Or why not just do that? When YouTube's been around for 15 years, they ain't never did it. But they come up with this story, right? That they could always just do this thing, but they never actually do it because they crafted a story in their mind that makes it okay to maintain the status quo. Let me let all of you in on the secret. Maintaining the status quo is for losers. I want to let that point sink in, then I'll explain why I said that. Maintaining the status quo is for losers. Why is this? Because the world is always moving. Now, we know the world is literally moving, right? We know the earth rotates around the sun, and we know the earth itself rotates on this axis. That's why we get day and night. Rotates around the sun. That's why we get spring, summer, fall, winter. And if you're trying to we got reconnected there. All right. If you're trying to maintain the status quo, in other words, you're trying to stay in the same spot while you're living in a world that is literally moving, then that means you're standing still and the world is moving. It's like standing on a treadmill and the treadmill is moving. What happens if you do that? You're going to get thrown off the treadmill. You're going to fall. This is what people are doing when they're trying to maintain the status quo. You're trying to craft a story that makes it okay to stay in the same spot while the rest of the world is moving forward. You are setting yourself up for defeat and failure. So you must continue moving if you want to continue growing in this world. Now, if you want to be the same person and you want to get left behind in this world, then you probably shouldn't be watching this live stream. But if you are for entertainment, fine. But if you want to move forward in life, you got to move forward at the same pace that life is moving forward, at least, or move forward a little bit faster. And the good thing is, if you're the type of person who has the urgency and the initiative, personal initiative to move yourself forward, you're going to put yourself ahead of most people, because most people don't even have the mindset to even think about this, let alone to actually do it. See, a lot of people will think about it, but then they won't do it. And the people who are doing it, you do it often enough, you only have to think about it. It becomes a habit. So all of this stuff matters. All right. So if you know that you've been BSing yourself, putting things off, being inconsistent, unmotivated, you've been a procrastinator, if you know you've been doing all these things, the unacceptable list, the job of that list is to pick up where your goals have left off. The things that are unacceptable will move you to actions that your goals might not have been good enough to get you to. Because you might have a goal that says, I want to make this much money next year, and it's more money than you've ever made before. But maybe that goal is not driving you strongly enough because, as I said, we do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. So what if you then looked at it from the opposite direction and said, okay, it is unacceptable for me to only make this much. And right now you're on pace to make that much. And now since it's unacceptable, maybe you'll take some action to make sure you make more than that. So you see how the unacceptable list can kind of give you a kick in the butt from behind you, whereas the goal is trying to pull you forward from in front of you. So you can use a combination of both of these. So they're not a substitute for each other. They actually work in tandem. So if any of you has ever played a sport, sometimes you got a coach who's trying to encourage you and always telling you, hey, you can do it, believe in yourself, keep trying and pushing you to move forward. And sometimes you might have a coach who's going to give you a kick in the butt and tell you, hey, well, what are you doing? You're looking terrible out there. You're like, you just woke up. All right, do you even want to play? You're sleepwalking. You're moving at half speed. They're giving you the kick in the butt at the same time. Sometimes you need a combination of both to be at your best. And it's okay. This is okay to do. Human beings, we should use other people. Because why not when there's 8 billion people on the planet? And number 4, this is the last point, and I'm going to take all questions and comments at the end of this, is we're talking unacceptable lists again. Notice what this unacceptable list is really about. It's really about principles, rules, standards, parameters, and quality control. That's what this is really about. Because successful people have these things in place and they accept nothing less than their standards being met. The more successful the person, the more standards they have, and the less accepting they are of anything being beneath their standards. So here's my question to everyone who's listening. How many standards do you have in place? And what do you do when something is not meeting your standards? And how does anybody know, including yourself, when a standard is not being met? And then what do you do? When's the last time somebody wasn't meeting a standard of yours? And how did you respond? What did you say? What action did you take? Or did you just tell yourself a story that made it okay, so you didn't have to address it? Again, be honest with yourself, because this is really about this tells you a lot about where you're going to end up. Successful people always have standards in place, and they don't accept anything less than the standard. For many professional sports teams, for example, the Miami Heat, down here in Miami where I'm at, there's a certain level of conditioning that you must hit in order to suit up in the games. So if you're a player on the team and you miss a couple games because you had an injury or something like that, there's a conditioning test that the player has to pass before they will be allowed to put a uniform on and actually play in the next game. Doesn't matter who it is. So Dwayne Wade, LeBron, when they were playing for Miami, when they missed the game or something and they were ready to come back, they had to pass the conditioning test before they could get back on the court and play again. Why? Standards. The team sets a certain standard for how things are going to work. Jeff Bezos years ago said this about Amazon. He said, if you're the type of person who wants work-life balance, this is not the place for you. This is not a place for work-life balance. This is the kind of place where if you're going to be a manager or get into a leadership role at Amazon, you're going to be working 70-hour weeks. You're not going to have a whole lot of family time. You're not going to have a whole lot of time to yourself. That's how it is here. And everybody needs to know that up front. Those are standards. And Amazon, they look like they're doing pretty good. The Miami Heat, they just won their first round playoff series. They look like they're doing pretty good. There are certain standards that are in place. So what are your standards? And it's not about right or wrong. It's about drawing lines. What are the lines going to be for you? Not everybody has these lines. Every company is different. There are companies out there who make sure that their employees have work-life balance because that's what matters to them. Amazon, it doesn't matter to them. So they want you at work all the time. Other companies want you at home all the time. They want you taking care of your kids. They give you 6 months when you have a kid. Amazon doesn't care that you had a kid. They say you better be at work. So you got to decide what your standards are going to be. The most successful people are uncompromising about their lines. This is a guy named Luke Longley who played for the Chicago Bulls back in the Jordan days. He wasn't in that Last Dance documentary that they put out 2 years ago because he lives in Australia. And so they couldn't really get him for the docuseries. There's this video about him that they did. Somebody else did later on. Y'all can find it on YouTube. But it was an interview somebody did with Luke. And, of course, they asked him about Michael Jordan. And Luke Longley called Michael Jordan. The word that he used to describe Michael Jordan was uncompromising. The guy was uncompromising. He was always locked in, and he expected all his teammates to be locked in all the time the same way that he was. And that's the thing that made him great, according to his own teammate, Luke Longley. So my question to you is, what are your standards? What do you have in place? And what do you do when those standards are not being met? And the only way you can know is you need to have a list. This can't be something that you just hold in your head. This should be written down so that you can see it and everybody around you can see it. Not just something that you randomly think about. Let's recap these 4 points. If you got questions, go ahead and post them in the comment section. I'm going to address them in a second. We're talking about your unacceptable list. Number one, it can be hard to set goals, but if you can't figure out what you want, think about what you don't want. That's your unacceptable list. All the things that you do not want that are completely unacceptable for you in life, write those down. That becomes your unacceptable list. Number two, do not rationalize the unacceptable. If something's unacceptable for you, do not make up a story in your mind that makes it okay. Decide that it's not okay, and then decide that you're going to do something about the fact that it's not okay. It must change. I must change it. I must change it right now. All three. Yes, this has to change. I am 100% responsible, and urgency. I need to do something about it right now. Not I'll do something about it in 3 weeks or in 6 months. That's the biggest challenge many people have, is a lack of urgency. And number three, people will do more to eliminate pain than they will do to achieve pleasure. Pain gets more attention than pleasure does. This is just the way that human beings are wired. That's why an unacceptable list can work very well, and it can work in conjunction with your goals list. So when you have goals, that's pulling you forward. You have an unacceptable list that's kind of kicking you in the butt from behind. So you can use both at the exact same time. And number four, notice that the unacceptable list is really about principles, rules, standards, quality control, and parameters. The more successful the person, the more of these they have in place. The most successful people, and think about the most successful person you know. Call them, text them, ask them. How many standards do you have in place? How many rules and parameters do you have in place? Do you know what is completely unacceptable for you in your business, in your personal life, in your fitness life, in your finances? I guarantee you the most successful person you know has a whole bunch of these in place. They don't just randomly think of stuff and hope that it works. And that's how many people go through life. So what is unacceptable for you? Do you have it written down so that you can see it? Not for other people to see, but for you to see. And are you holding yourself to those standards? All that said, whoever has a question, go ahead and post it in the comment section. This is all leading up to my Work on Your Game live event, which is starting next Thursday. It is a 2-day virtual only event. You can attend the event live from wherever you are right now. Just be on your computer, not on your phone. And it is specifically for the thought leaders, intellectual property salespeople, and the experts. Any of you who wants to sell your knowledge and package it up in the form of like coaching, courses, speaking, books, lectures, live events, workshops. Any of you who wants to do anything like that for a living, and you want to make enough money at least to cover your expenses so that you can do this full time, then come to Work on Your Game Live. You can get your ticket by going to workonyourgame.live. That link is also the link in my bio on IG. If you're watching this on Instagram, there's a link in my bio on Instagram. Again, that's Work on Your Game Live. It's a 2-day event. All the recordings will be available to anyone who attends. Anyone who has a ticket, you'll get all the recordings. So if you miss a day, you can just catch the recordings. But you have to have a ticket to get the recordings. So let me see if we got any questions. I don't know if I saw any. If you got one, post it in the comment section. Go Give Her, what's going on? How are you? Nigel Pugh, what's going on? How are you? Yes, urgency, very important. And working on your game as usual. I am D True, appreciate you. Bees Black Honey, good. I'm glad that it makes sense. Lionel, oh, you remember the Dre Baldwin song? Nigel said, any tips on overcoming depression? It's not really my area of expertise. Have you listened to my podcast? I might be able to help you. It depends on what level of depression you're talking about. If there's a deep, like clinical type of depression, I would suggest a therapist. But if you're talking about a mindset level, something that can be covered on a mindset level, and I would suggest you listen to my Work on Your Game podcast. By the way, those of you who don't know, I have a podcast. It's called Work on Your Game. It comes out every single day. We cover discipline, confidence, mental toughness, initiative, strategy, accountability, execution, communication, sales skills. All of that's covered on the Work on Your Game podcast every single day. If you like this topic, this is covered on the Work on Your Game podcast as well. All right, so I'm going to wait like 30 seconds to see if anybody else posts a question. Work on Your Game Live is what we are leading up to. That's next Thursday. Tickets at workonyourgame.live. That's where you get your tickets. 2-day event, all virtual. If you miss a day or you miss a segment or you got to go pick somebody up from the airport in the middle of the day, then you get access to the replays. You can watch everything on replay that you missed. Again, that's workonyourgame.live, 2-day event. Specifically for the thought leaders, intellectual property salespeople, and entrepreneurs. Day 1, we are covering mindset and strategy. Day 2, we are covering application and execution. That is what we cover at Work on Your Game Live. Mindset, strategy, day 1. Application and execution on day 2. Many entrepreneurs falsely believe that the biggest thing they need help with is how do I do A, B, C, D, and E, when what they really need help with is their mindset around why they are trying to do A, B, C, D, and E. You might even be trying to execute on something that's not actually going to work. You get your mindset right and you have the right strategies, then you execute in that order. So that's why we cover mindset and strategy on day 1, application execution on day 2. So I ain't seen anybody else come in with a comment or a question. So this one we shall wrap up. Everybody, workonyourgame.live is where you get your tickets to that live event. I'll probably do another live stream. I'll do more live streams before the end of this week. So any of you, Bees Black Honey, so I think that's my main problem, then you already know what to do. Bees Black Honey, get your ticket to Work on Your Game Live at that link right there, workonyourgame.live. I'll see you at the event, and we can cover all that. The good thing about it, especially with it being an online event, is that all your questions and challenges you can bring with you. I will address everybody's. When you leave the event, all your questions and challenges will be addressed. You'll have a game plan of what to do moving forward, both on the mindset and strategy side, and also on the application and execution side, which is what all entrepreneurs need. You don't want to just be going out here just based off of talent, luck, and timing and hoping that it works. It can work, but you don't want to base your business career on hope. So workonyourgame.live, that link is also in my bio. So when this live is over, just go to my bio on Instagram. The link is there. You get your ticket right there. And if you're on my email list, you've probably seen some emails I sent out about the event already. So that's that, everybody. Y'all have a good Wednesday afternoon and set your goals for the month of May. Work on your game. We out.